Welcome to GKey Solutions Private Limited.
SQL Server database, interview questions and answers.
Question number 3. What are tables, views and key differences between them?
In this session, we are going to discuss about what are tables, what are views, and 4 key differences between tables and views. Coming to the tables and the definition, a table is a database object that stores data physically in rows and columns. Coming to the structure of the table, each column has a data type. It is like integer, varchar, decimal or something, and each row is a record. And whereas coming to the persistence, the data in the table is stored permanently until deleted. Coming to the usage of the table, it used to store the transactional data, for example sales, employees and orders for sales domain, and it forms the core of any relational database. And coming to the syntax, syntax is something like that: create table, table name, column name, data type name, whereas constraint, column 2, data type and constraint, and so on. We are going to create an example table by using the below script. Here we are creating a table called employee with columns like employee ID with data type integer, and the constraint is like primary key, and another column like employee name with data type varchar and department with data type varchar. These things we are going to see in SSMS once we got the explanation for the remaining concepts. This is about tables. And coming to the views. Coming to the definition of views, a view is a virtual table based on a query result. It doesn't store data physically except for indexed views. There are different types of views that we are going to discuss in coming sessions. It is a query result. In that sense, once we create a table or tables, based on those tables we can create a view. This is the query result meaning. And coming to the structure of the view, it looks like a table with rows and columns, but its data comes from one or more tables. That means it is the structure of the view is present, whereas the data is coming from different tables where it is connected. Coming to the persistence of the view, only the definition like SQL query is stored, not the data. Why? Because the data is coming from different tables that are used in SQL query for defining views. The usage of the views: simplify complex queries. For example, if you are having a complex query or a complex table with thousands of columns or something, in that scenario, to get like bunch of columns from 1 or 2 or 3 tables, you just go and create a view with those desired columns. We put them in a view and we create a view, and we can give that view to the specific users of that query, and it restricts column or row access. The main point coming to the views is a security. Instead of giving all the access on tables, we are going to create a view with a limited columns that are required for the particular users instead of giving all the data for them. This is called security over here. And coming to the third point, it presents data in a specific format without altering base tables. For example, we are not going to alter any data in the base tables, means the view that has been created on those tables. Coming to the syntax of the view, here the syntax is something like create view, view name as, select column 1, column 2 from table. What is the base table that we are creating? View that table, and we can use a where condition as well. Coming to the example of creating a view, we can understand somewhat more. Here we are creating a view called VW employee DEPT as, select employee name, department from table employees. We are selecting these two columns from this table, and we are putting a where condition like department is equal to sales. Here it filters only sales data and it put that data into this view. Here the view stores the structure of this query, and it will fetch the data from the base tables. And coming to the main differences, that key differences, that I have segregated 4 key differences among table and view. There are 4 points here. Coming to the first point, storage. How the table used to store the data. Table stores data physically in rows and columns, whereas rows are something like data, columns data. Whereas coming to the view, it doesn't store data, only store the SQL query definition, except for indexed view. There is a concept called indexed views that we are going to discuss in the next coming SQL Server interview questions and answers. And coming to the next point, data origin. Here the origin of table is self-contained. Data is inserted and stored directly. The table is self-contained, and we are directly inserting the data into the table. Whereas coming to the views, data comes from one or more underlying tables. As we discussed, view will be created on already created tables. It doesn't have direct inserts into the views. It just shows the data in the table or in the tables. Why? Because we can create a view based on one or more tables, right? And coming to the persistence. Persistence is something like data is present until explicitly deleted for table. For example, if you have inserted 100 records into a table, if you delete the data only, it will be deleted from the table. Whereas coming to the persistence point in view, it always shows the latest data from base tables, no independent data storage. For example, you have created a view based on 2 tables or 1 table. The table contained around 100 records, and you were created a view on that. After some time, or after some period of time, you have deleted 50 records from that table. Then now the view contains only 50 records of data. Why? Because the view is based on the table, that is the base table. In such a scenario, always shows the latest data from base tables. That means either the data can be increased, the data can be decreased, and it maintains certain things based on tables data. It is not independent data storage. Why? Because it is dependent on underlying tables. That is the point called persistence. When we are coming to the next point, like usage, coming to the table, used to store, manage raw data or transactional data. Here the transactional data means the data you are inserting into table regularly, frequently. For example, coming to the banking sector, we are having ATM transactions per day, lakhs of transactions used to happen. That kind of insertion of data into the tables regularly, that we are going to call as a transactional data. In this scenario, table is used to store and manage transactional data. For example, the tables like employees and sales. Coming to the views, the usage used to simplify queries, restrict access, or present data in a specific format. Used to simplify queries in the sense we are creating these queries based on some base tables. As I explained, the base tables may have like hundreds of columns and bulk data, but all the users doesn't require all the data. In such a scenario, we are simplifying the queries, and those queries as a view, we are going to give that view to the particular users to use that particular data instead of giving all the data from the tables. Restrict access. Once we create any view, we can restrict access for the view. For example, there might be different users for the database. From there, to give access to the particular view, we can restrict the access. And coming to the point like present data in a specific format. As we discussed, views are not permanent data storage pointers. Views are created by the base tables. Here we can create a view by restricting the data from the tables. In that scenario, we can present data in a specific format. These are the four key differences between table and view. These are like storage, data origin, persistence, and usage. And these things we practically see how to create a view, how to create a table, and how to see the data, like inserting data into table and viewing the data from table and view. That we are going to see in SSMS, that is called SQL Server Management Studio. Here the scripts are ready. First we are going to test creating a table, then we are going to test inserting data into the table, then we are going to see creating a view, and finally we are going to view the data in the table and the view. See, we have a statement called drop table employees. Why it is here? For example, if there is a table called employees present already in the database, we are going to delete it. Why? Because we are creating that table from the beginning and we are inserting the different rows of data. In such a scenario, by combining these two commands, I'm just executing this query, and this query will be executed in the database called GKey. Okay. See, command completed successfully. We have created a table called employees with the tables employee ID, like columns employee ID, employee name, and department. And we are inserting bunch of records into this employees table. This would be the syntax to insert the data into the created table. Insert into table name, whereas columns and the values that we are going to insert. We are inserting 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 rows into a table. We are executing these commands, and 5 rows got inserted successfully. And we'll see what are the data available in employees table. For that, we can select star from employees, and we can see the data. These are the 5 records that got inserted in the employees table. And here, once the data is present in the employees table, we are going to create a simple view based on that employees table. Here also, I'm using the dropping view name command. Why? Because if there is a view with a similar name in the database, that is going to drop first, and we are creating the view again on this base table. See the syntax or the query we are using to create a view. Create view name. For the naming convention, BW underscore employee DEPT I have given like this. We should have to maintain some naming conventions while creating different database objects like tables, views, stored procedures, functions, or something like that. Here the syntax is as we discussed in the theoretical class. Practically it would be like this: create view name as select employee name, department from employees table that we have created already, and we can have the where condition as well. As I said, for security reason, we can restrict the data and we can create a view on particular rows where it is filtering the data on department sales wise. We are going to create this view here. Okay, here we can't execute both the statements individually. Why? Because the view is not existed. We can create directly here. Now the command completed successfully. See, now we have created a table called employee with the 5 records, whereas we have created a view which contains department is equal to sales data. That we see how the data is stored in table, whereas in view. By executing these queries, we can see that the table is containing 5 records, whereas coming to the view, we have created a view which is on department sales. Here it filtered only sales department data. In such a way, it is having a single record in view query. Okay, in this way, the view is kind of a virtual object that will be created based on the underlying tables. Like here, the view has been created on underlying table called employees. This is how the table and view are differ in their ways and functionalities, and based on the business requirement, we go for creating tables and views. Thank you.
Stay connected with GKey IT solutions on all your favorite platforms. Follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to stay updated with all our latest content. Join the GKey community and grow your IT career with us.